Welcome to the first episode of Into Layman's Mind. So we're talking about cybersecurity today, and we're going to be discussing social engineering. I'm Anna. I have experience in cybersecurity for the last 5 years. And joining me on this podcast is Terry. So Terry, can you give us a little bit of a background of your professional life?
Hi. Well, I'm just a person in the shop. Chinese takeaway. Typical Asian shenanigans. Fantastic. Not much other than that.
Yeah, so you have more of a kind of catering sort of experience, dealing with people.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Cashiers, going through some probably web stuff from websites and all that sort of stuff. So not much other than that.
Okay, so being with me for a while now, what do you know about social engineering? How would you describe it?
Well, you can take it by literal social engineering, as in the social aspect of it, and engineering. But to me, it's just like the term is being used around, especially for most likely techie stuff. So it's like, how to get to people's stuff by literally talking them way into it. Sweet talking your way into someone else's wallet, or basically their passwords in some cases.
Yeah, that seems kind of close to how I found this Kaspersky definition. So it's a manipulation technique that exploits human error to gain private information, access, or valuables. So we're going to talk about a couple of traits that are used by social engineers. And one of them is kind of heightened emotions. That'll be fear, excitement, curiosity, anger, guilt, or sadness.
Salesman tactics.
There we go. So I was thinking if we can have an example, like would you know of an example or be able to come up with an example of where we use heightened emotions?
Well, as I said just slightly earlier, salesman tactics, the whole FOMO, fear of missing out, and all that sort of shenanigans, generally is one of the ways of going, oh great, you should get this today, it might not be available next time, or there's a special offer. Or nowadays it's like, especially with in terms of social engineering, or more like scams, it's like, important stuff is happening, you need to get it done now.
Yeah. Well, see, you're actually touching onto the second point, which is urgency. That's the thing. What you were talking about there is urgency, but with the heightened emotion, that'll be more of, the emails you'd get from like a Nigerian prince of saying, "Oh, I have all this money, I don't know what to do with it. Can you take it off my hands and I'll give you a piece?" So it kind of gives you that heightened level of emotion of saying, ooh, like, I think it would be mostly curiosity in this case.
To say the word emotion is a bit strong for my sense, because emotion is like I suppose curiosity is evoking something, but to me it's like the urgency be more of an emotional response than it is like, here's like, I have, 1 million in my bank, I don't know what to do with it, maybe you can help. And it's like, to me, maybe I'm just being with you too long. To me it's like, okay, question marks, I don't know what you want from me, and I don't like it.
Okay. Another example I had there of sadness would have been, also it would have been going through an email, and it would have been from a queen somewhere in Nigeria as well, because they're all royalty in there. And they'd say, "Oh, my husband has passed away, and there's an account whose name closely matches to yours." So it kind of provokes this sort of empathy and curiosity of a reward base. So you feel empathetic that she's lost her loved one, but there's also a financial reward for it that she wants to use you to extrapolate from the system. You'd be finding all these weird ass surnames. Like, how would you have somebody with a surname of Yip in fucking Nigeria? That seems very abstract to me.
Oh yeah, just sorry, my long lost cousin from I don't know 4 generations ago somehow managed to go weirdly west, but not fully committed, just halfway. Somehow, and yeah, hi cousin. But like oddly enough, when you're saying Nigerian Prince stuff, to me, I guess it's because of my exposure to these sort of stories is a bit more common than probably the more layman or anyone just normally passerby. To me, these sort of scams are less effective than the whole sort of like more of a GoFundMe, for example, like you see on Facebook. Now, vast majorities are not scam. It really depends, but it can be used in this manner in terms of like sadness. Hey, for example, someone in my family has cancer or some sort of illness. I need help. Please send whatever you can, even €1, 10 cents, whatever. To me, that seems to evoke a lot more empathy, if not human kindness. A bit more than, hi, I am Queen of Zimbabwe, Miss X, Y, and Z. Somebody who's like, okay, a bit too... It's like a celebrity going to you. There's a bit of disconnect between how we see that person versus you. That's why, like, when we look at celebrities, like, oh, these magical, if not like hierarchy people that essentially we put them in a higher pedestal, even though we know they're human. Yeah. But it feels like they're not attainable. They're not reachable. It's like almost like YouTubers to a certain degree, depending on which way you want to see it.
No, that was actually a really good example in terms of using a GoFundMe as a medium of my loved one has cancer, or I was thinking they might even fabricate of somebody you might actually know.
Yeah.
Like create an impersonation account and say, oh, I'm such and such. Which kind of, you would say, yeah, these do seem familiar.
Yeah.
Like reusing pictures is not an uncommon thing. Yeah. And saying, oh yeah, my family member has cancer or they have terminal illness, but it can be cured with this. If you can GoFundMe or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, some of the like Asian dramas, for example, would generally like prey on elderly people going, oh, it's your son that hasn't talked to you in like probably 10, 20 years. I'm in a bit of a bind right now. And, sometimes like, oh, my grandson needs help, send money. That sort of thing. It's also sort of like that as well. But it really depends on situation to situation, but like they're like common enough tactics that's like been plastered over every drama that I've seen so far.
Yeah, and I think that kind of touches on the third point of trust. So, like in your case, familiarity would be a key there, where if somebody with the name Yip, you're already thinking, are they family? That's like, would that be the first thing in your mind? So if somebody that was impersonating a family member,
I mean, normally, yes. Though, fortunately for myself, the way my surname works is not every Yip is family. So, there is kind of like a disconnect. For example, like in Irish terms, it'd be like, not all Kavanaghs are related. But you would kind of go, okay, which side of the family are you on? And the thing would be, for myself, if that was the case, I'd be asking, like, for example, my father, like, do you know this person? Do we have a person that's this name? But I will, like, search around. It's kind of depends on your own prerogative or how you are as a person. To me, be like, I need to know who this is and how far distantly removed, because my family is big. Yeah. So, to say, like, oh, I am cousin X, Y, and Z is like, bro, I could not tell you if you really are, or you're literally like the 12th farly distant removed for whatever reason, because that's just how my family is. So it's a bit harder for like myself, if using the name, my surname particularly, to scam me. But the typical way would be, yes, understandably, it'd probably be one of the easier ways to kind of go, oh, hey, it's probably someone I should know. Family would be one thing.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Like, another thing of trust, you mentioned scams using the elderly. Like, one of the examples I had in my mind is, you know, how, like, when you get into your old age and one of the either the spouse of the wife passes away, and there's a kind of loneliness component, and somebody would reach out to them kind of proposing to go on a date, and then you get kind of begin this long conversation of building up trust. So with time they're gonna be a bit more like, first of all, it's kind of I'd like to call it the grooming phase, where you build up a relationship, you keep chatting to them and stuff like that.
Establish a rapport.
Establish a rapport. Yeah, kind of wouldn't be the attacker, but the malicious actor in this case. And then with time would say, oh, I'd like to come over, but I don't have money for the ticket. Like, this would be an example.
Yeah.
Want to come over, don't have money, can you fund them? And because they know that they're elderly, they definitely have, you know, a nice little
savings or pensions or whichever.
Like, majority of the time they'd have some sort of like safety net. So they like to dig into that one. So, or otherwise make a pretext of like, oh, my daughter is also kind of playing on the sadness part. Oh, my daughter is having medical issues, can you send me some money to help out? And since they build up this rapport, an unknowing person will actually say, okay, no, that seems feasible, like, if we are in the same age bracket, and like, shit happens. And kind of empathy starts playing into that.
I mean, this scenario, not necessarily in the elderly, but I mean, elderly are generally more vulnerable in a sense of like, you know, easy, like, because they've been around for so long, they maybe want like a companion or someone just to talk to. But even like someone as young as ourselves, like 20s, 30s, or even like younger, like anyone, if you, like, for example, friends, we make friends quite a bit, and if someone, like, let's just say an introvert got a friend, to them it's like, oh, this is a bestie. To that other person, oh, hey, easy money, like easy picking. And you wouldn't know any better, because you're like, at that point you've already established some sort of like a routine. It's like, oh, if they, like, it wouldn't be as prominent as a red flag as if someone else was seeing it. It's like, oh, it's just my friend, it's fine. Like, he borrowed like 30 euros from there, 20 euros here. He's you know, brought me to lunch the other day. The lunch was like 10 euro, whatever. Like, that sort of thing. But if you notice over time, it's like, oh, I'm actually down like 500 quid from him, and he only gave me 100 back. His net profit is like 400 quid. So it's like, you wonder at that point, it's like, is he really a friend, or is he just playing with me? You wouldn't know until you, like, literally either someone will tell you, or you kind of just sit back going, I feel like tight on budget as of late. Why? And then you slowly start thinking about it. Like, it's something that you need to be more cognizantly aware of, like, your financials or whatever. Something that makes you like, oh, something's not right, or I need to maybe evaluate something.
Yeah. But that's the thing of, like, the capability of being able to step back from the situation and realize what's going on. Because what used to, I think it still would happen now, because, for example, in relationships, you'd have the situation where it's a toxic relationship and all their friends are saying, God, get out of there, like, this is not worth it. Like, this would be a very similar situation of, this person's exploiting you for money. Oh, no, he's having financial troubles, it's okay, I can help him out. Yeah. Like, I have a few quid sitting nearby. But, I think it's one of those things of, you just have, like, you need to be able to kind of listen to people you trust. Or kind of, it will sound a bit mean, kind of like deciding the people you can trust.
Yeah.
Like, because if your friends are telling you that the relationship is toxic, you know, and you continuously ignore it, it's like, dude, like, it's one of those things of like, you would need to keep it at the back of your mind.
Yeah. I think it also kind of like plays like it's sort of like a weird double-edged sword kind of thing. It's like, oh, they're my significant other. I should be more trusting. Like, I should be like, for example, sorry, like the typical, oh, I must check his emails, check his messages. Is he texting to someone else other than me? Save for either case of the male or female. There should be a level of trust and a level of sort of like autonomy of, hey, you're old enough to know what you should be doing and not doing, or therefore the common courtesy should be there. But here's the problem. It's like, when you listen to friends, it's like, okay, at what point are they jealous of you? That's a normal common trope as well. It's like, oh, I'm a female, I have a boyfriend, none of my girlfriends have any. Are they jealous, or do they want my man? That's another case of scenario. So there's a lot of like emotions playing around for that specific scenario. I mean, there's plenty of others, but that'd be one of them.
At this stage of the podcast, we transition into relationship advice from Terry.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm taking out all sort of bullet points. I'm going through all sorts of emotions right now.
Okay, so like we've talked about the traits, which is kind of the psychological side of you. So now we're gonna kind of look at the attack types, like how would a social engineering attack would happen, like where to look out for them. And I think we've already kind of touched up on a few of them. One of them would be a phishing attack. So in a phishing attack, what that involves is getting unsolicited messages requesting information. So the main three, the primary three I'd like to kind of talk about is phishing, spear phishing, and whaling. And not that type of whaling, get your mind out of the gutter.
No, I'm talking about immortal whaling. Sorry, wrong whale.
But yeah, it's when you get email stating that, like, for example, oh, your Amazon account's going to get cancelled, or your Spotify card is running out, click here to renew
or something.
Yeah, that would be kind of the lowest level. They're very generic, and it's one of those spray and pray tactics. Spear phishing would be more targeted. So if you think about your shop, for example, you're not really high up there in the pecking order, but you're kind of up there. So you'd be more of the, not really the financial officer, but kind of the HR,
You put it this way, I'm like the supervisor, and I still need to talk to management about X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
That'd be the easier way.
So for you, like, for example, that needs to be a bit more of a tailored message.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So it'll be either relating to what you need to do with people you need to interact with, because I know you sometimes talk with suppliers.
Yeah.
So supplier pretends to be, like, oh, here's a deal, click here to accept or whatever, and then it redirects you to a page saying, put in your Google credentials. Yeah, they've already harvested something there. Yeah.
This should be just as easy as, like, nowadays, just like a malicious link. Like, not necessarily like, oh, sign in to get your credentials. It's like, this is a virus, and that's me compromised, quote unquote.
Well, yeah, true. Like, emails can also have, like, since you don't really have, like, as a mom and pop shop, you don't really have higher security. You just use your general everyday Googles and Outlooks and stuff like that. Somebody can actually craft a malicious code into the email, and once you open it and you click on something, they get you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So whaling, that'll be more for the CEO. Like, since I think your mom's running the shop, like, there'd be something crafted to her.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time be kind of requesting a financial transaction. So, for example, let's imagine, I know this is an alien understanding to you, paying for your orders by card.
Okay.
I know all your transactions are by cash, but with card with cash it makes it more difficult. But for example, in my company, a whaling would have been done on our financial officers or our directors. And this actually did happen. So we're dealing with one of the clients one day, and we have pretty big order, like we need to have upgrades, a couple of million. And then all of a sudden, this is a secondhand story, by the way, like this, I've heard it from somebody else in my company. So there's an email that comes in, looks kind of very similar pattern, very similar kind of speaking sort of terms. Like the format is almost identical to the previous link of conversations, but this is somebody that's inserted their conversation within the mail chain, saying, "Oh, our banking address has been changed. Can you send the PO to here, like the order, the order request into here, or like put the money into this account instead of our previous account." And that's one of the telltale signs where, hold on, like,
why the sudden change?
Why the sudden change? Yeah. Like usually when these sort of things are happening, it's a little bit expected of, we'll notify you beforehand. And companies don't really change banks that frequently or on a dime. Like, you'll know this way in advance. So, yeah, so somebody, they actually got him, but he was stopped by the bank because it looked kind of suspicious.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty good catch. So as much as people are kind of dissing the banks, I feel like they're doing their jobs. Like, in terms of big transactions, I feel like they're doing their job in protecting people. But like when it comes to smaller dimes, unfortunately, the smaller man, it's not as worthwhile.
Let's put it this way: as annoying as banks can be, there's a lot of people, and if you've ever looked at a YouTube comment or any of your emails, you're not going to look at every single one of them because there's too many for one person to keep up. And it's like you looking at 20 monitors at the exact same time. It's gonna be rough. It doesn't matter if like it's a simple information, like it could be all pictures. If I give you 20 things to look at and then I'm asking 5 seconds later, name me every single one with a lot of detail, unless you're like one of those, let's call it geniuses or very special type of abilities, you're gonna have a hard time.
You mean autistic?
Not necessarily autistic. Well, you don't have to be artistic to do something like that. For someone who has like perfect memory, they can tell you every single detail.
That's a spectrum of autism.
If you want to call it that way, then sure. I mean, superpowers, whatever.
Psychological superpowers. So here's one you've actually told me about earlier. The next one's actually phishing, so that would be voice phishing. So yeah. Do you want to recall that one?
Well, hi. Your Amazon account is, and then it's like, oh, really? It's just the first telltale signs how I normally hear. Vast majority is quite close enough to a robotic voice. So that's first and foremost. It's like, oh, press 1 to end. Like it's literally like as if you're calling a bank. Press 1 to go to this place. Press 2 to go to X, Y, and Z. It's very similar to that sort of like structure for vast majority. But the voice seems to be like very static, like robotic to a certain extent. There are a few that are quite close enough, like someone actually took their time and said everything properly. Even then, at that point, it's like, I personally don't have an Amazon account, so when it says something to do with Amazon, it's nothing to do with me. Now, having said that, there would be like, for example, banking and stuff like that, which would raise enough flags, but if a bank needs to call you, then vast majority, generally you need to hear everything is being recorded.
And it's usually personal. They'll ask, is this, like, I'm calling from whatever, is this such and such?
Yes.
Like, they'd be very personal rather than generic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like tailored and not targeted to a certain degree.
And there'll be a level of emotion, you know.
Yeah.
The thing that I was actually contemplating about the whole trying to utilize technologies and AI in order to get rid of that robotic feel is, I know there's a software out there or a program out there called Lyrebird, and I've seen some YouTube videos of one of the Minecraft servers promoting their server by putting a couple of US political figures on the front page, and their resemblance is uncanny. At that point, like, there was a point I kind of started questioning, is this a thing? Are they actually voice acting? And I'm like, no way. No way.
It would be fantastic as a story if they were, but...
Yeah, but there are intonations, there is emotion in a particular emotion in the voice.
Yeah.
I remember maybe 5-6 years back, it was a bit more robotic, but it has improved since, and it's starting to be very uncanny.
I mean, we did have this technology for a long time. I mean, was it probably a good few years now, 3 or 4? It was a time before COVID anyway, that Adobe has essentially made a software, or they themselves just like go through the motions, actually made a software, or whether Adobe Suites actually able to do stuff like that, where it's like carbon copy. Like, you just need to speak a few sentences and it could do whatever it needs to do. It was so feared even by themselves that they're like, yeah, we're putting this under lock and key. Like, we're gonna bury it under everything. That's how scared they were themselves were of their own creation. So for now to kind of like surface to this extent, it's like, it's slowly catching there, but Adobe got there first.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
I mean, like, lately with the technology and the machine learning, the AI, for example, ChatGPT, it's capable of producing very, very kind of believable articles. Like, it's, if you don't look into it that much, or you don't know as many facts, you might it does seem believable, like, as opposed to what it used to be before. There's another one that would be either not Vivaldi, but trying to think of Midjourney. Midjourney is another one of those generating pictures.
Oh yeah, the art one.
Yeah, and it can get to an extent where people can say, "Oh yeah, well, like, I drew that one," because it kind of merges like a fiction with. Yeah, I believe somebody could do that. Like a professional artist could actually make this piece of art using Photoshop or like image editing tools.
Yeah. And
it's becoming really uncanny, and it's putting up a lot of questions out there.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I haven't played with a Midjourney or any of the AI creation tools, but I have seen like a few YouTubers use them, and the thing would be like, you still need to give them an input, and so like still, it's kind of like you still need to feed something for them to work with. It's kind of like, oh, I want it in this sort of color palette, and so it goes, okay, so what, like, let's just say I want it in acrylic or oil painting. Typical oil painting style. I give them like a drawing, and they'll pretty much slap it on as much as they can, and then you just refine it from there and keep refining it to the point where it's like, okay, I want this shading here, or I want to focus on these part, and that's where it slowly shows like, oh, this is like immaculate art. But here's where the problem is: you need to put a lot into it to get it out. But the thing is, it's just faster than normal drawing, unless you're like a speed artist.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. So yeah, this is where I see the voice phishing becoming more kind of questionable. If it had more emotion then. So the next one, I know you also have a recent story about it, but it's smishing. So that's SMS phishing.
Yeah.
So where you'd get SMS message where unfortunately you can't verify the link until you click on it. So the one I've gotten recently, and I think like members of your family gotten recently, was from eFlow, stating that oh, since your card is about to expire, here's a cancellation thing. Here's a, your since your card's about to expire, or your account's going to be cancelled. Click here to update your credentials and stuff like that.
Yeah. Basically, you haven't paid your dues.
Yeah.
Is another one.
Yeah. Funny thing enough, last night somebody actually shared an interesting story with me about Ray-Bans.
Ray-Bans?
Ray-Ban, you know, the headphones.
Oh, right.
So, apparently, this guy got his girlfriend a set of headphones. So, made an order, put in a purchase and stuff like that. Confirmation comes in. Seconds later, another email comes in to say, okay, we received your details. Please confirm your order and proceed to payment. And there's a QR code. And the website of it was like, I have my kind of QR code scanner that shows you the URL before you go into it. So I think it's the URL was ray-ban.com. So like, and the thing linked, and the link would actually show because the thing verifies the link, it would say, yeah, this is unverified. So now it makes me feel like, don't get shit from Ray-Ban. Their network's not secure. People's information's getting out. Like, I'm not sure about credit cards, but I'd definitely be concerned about that.
Yeah, that's definitely a worrying thing, alright. I mean, even that, like, now with, you know, advanced technologies and just over time, people have gotten way smarter than, like, your broken English from, you know, the Nigerian princes and stuff like that. Like, they're now, like, properly, as if they're, like, written in English by a professor or even, like, a proper student.
Yeah.
They're well worded. I mean, sure enough, like, what, in recent time, we had one with the whole Google, YouTube stuff. I think it was, like, the AdSense, where a lot of YouTubers actually fell for it and actually lost their account or their own channels.
Yeah.
Because as I've heard, this has been a while back now, it's basically you're only supposed to have one Google AdSense account, but basically it's like, it's basically sent to a vast majority of YouTubers saying, hey, something's wrong here, you need to create a new one, aka sort of like port it over. But how it works is basically, once you port everything over, it doesn't really port, it just deletes your old account. So basically just like factory, it just wipes out everything. So you, like your YouTube channel, you'd be like 5 years, boom, all gone. A lot of mainstream YouTubers have gotten hit, some old, some new. A good bit has been like slapped properly. And it was like, oh, there's only a few of those like, this doesn't seem right because I only have one. So went to their own YouTube reps to verify. It's like, no, everything seems to be in order. And I was like, okay, so this is the wrong thing that's happening.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're in the right like ballpark, you could pretty much catch good people out.
Yeah. So I just realized that the previous example I was giving was actually an example of farming. So with farming, if you think about it, like, it's using malicious code to gather people's information either through websites or through emails. So if you think, like, when you're talking about farming, and that's with a PH, farming, I think of an actual farming. So people come in, they kind of, more of like a communal farmer. They'll plant their stuff in the field, and then they kind of expect it to grow, but then somebody comes in and just plucks that information out before it has time to change. So, like, this is, like, it will be harvesting credentials, anything people put into that website, or if there's forms in there and those can be compromised, they can gather all sorts of information, name, email, address, credit card information, unless those redirect correctly. I've seen a couple of websites that still don't do that. So normally, like, how I can trust a website is secure. It would actually redirect it to either a PayPal page, like a proper PayPal page, and it'll ask you for credentials to log in there. But you shouldn't really be making purchases from within website fields. For a credit card, for example, AIB has this nice thing of redirecting a person to "I've confirmed it in my app." So that's
does pop-ups count as that then?
Yeah, that would actually give you a pop-up saying, "Oh, there's a confirmation waiting on your purchase."
Okay.
And that's where I'm like, okay, no, this is legitimate.
Like for example, let's give it a, like Steam, for example. They have a PayPal section. When you click PayPal, it actually will pop up like a separate like window.
Yeah.
That what I meant by that pop up. Does that still count? Because technically speaking, it didn't transition, but it's like a link to whatever they have there.
I think that will be more of it's kind of a link to the It's kind of like a communication portal to AIB or to PayPal.
Yeah.
So they'll invoke this window. That'll be from the PayPal. This is kind of to my best understanding. It might be accurate or not, but it makes sense to me right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it kind of invokes an API, and it'll produce this portal that'll talk directly to PayPal, saying this amount has been requested. Kind of send approval order sort of thing. Okay.
That's fair. No, because it's like I think like pop-ups and stuff like that. Because technically it is a redirect in its own sense, just like slightly different.
I would kind of warn you for those ones as well. If there is a pop-up, do check the URL.
Yeah.
Like for example, Steam is a reputable company, but for example, if there was somebody else, if it was all within a browser and you get a pop-up to go elsewhere, that would be kind of require require a bit more diligence, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Like streaming sites, for example, would be like the most evident one. Yeah. Like pop-up ads, like kind of like pop-up ads kind of shenanigans.
Yeah. So the next attack type, so we've gone through the phishing and all the subsections of that. So that's requesting unsolicited information, gathering information through interaction. So another attack type would be actually pretexting. So would you have any idea what pretexting is?
Well, I'm judging purely by name, pretexting. So
I was hoping you do.
It's either from what I'm figuring out in my own mind right now, it's either you do a bit of research to do it, or it's like establishing relationships but separate in a different format. So one would be via phone calls, one via email, one via text. That's to me the basic how I see it. I don't think it is exactly.
Okay, so the keyword here would be a fabricated scenario. So you would actually put yourself in, like, a malicious actor would actually put themselves in a scenario pretending to be somebody that is, for example, there to clean the gutters, or in your case, do some sort of service or maintenance work, or a roofer. Like, unfortunately, in your case, it would be much easier to spot out because it's only so small. Like, the company is tiny, so the second somebody comes in saying, "Oh, this guy's here to kind of service our gutters," there's going to be questions all around. Did we get him? Like, who called?
It's like, who are you, who you called, and you need every information. Like, where's your business card, who you would contact, who's the names given.
Yeah, but for example, imagine if there was a bigger company, like a bigger franchise. Imagine like Hell's Kitchen. Yeah. Like, they're a big thing, and they'll have regularly people coming in to do a service of some sort.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure the cooks themselves don't do the cleaning. They'll hire somebody else to do that for them. And like, so for example, you need to clean your canopy every once in a while. Yes, it's going to be all internal.
Yeah.
But I know you got a contractor out once to help you out.
Yeah, to do like a big, massive deep clean kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And for these sort of bigger kitchens, it would be more of a regular thing. So if you knew about these schedules, if you were kind of, as you said, did your research, you see them coming in every once in a while. Then you'd be able to say, oh yeah, I'm the cleaner, I'm here to do such and such. And they'd be very little questions.
Yeah.
And like, if you even get the uniform, probably cheap to get. Badge, cheap to make.
Yeah.
Like, everything can be forged.
Yeah. I mean, it's something as simple as being like a courier, or even, for example, maintenance. Like, who's going to stop people from holding a ladder in a toolbox, for example? Like, there's this, like, so-called life hacks you've been seeing every now and again, like, be it TikTok or whatever, YouTube sphere at this point. It's like, oh, how do you get to the cinema for free? Grab a ladder. Walk in.
Grab a uniform.
Yeah, it wasn't even in a uniform. They were like, what, barely in a builder's slacks. But it was like 2 dudes with a ladder. It's maybe a toolbox, and they just kind of just walked in there. They were just let in.
Yeah, because they made their pretext. They dressed the part. They made it look like they belong. Like nobody.
They got the prop essentially.
Yeah, and it's just kind of exploiting the constant rotation of people. Nobody's really familiar with anybody else. So it makes it that much more difficult to spot it when you're in a more corporate sort of environment. These sort of like, you guys don't belong, kind of pointing out saying, you guys don't belong here. What are you doing here?
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's like no point, like, for example, if I were pretend to be a police officer to go into like Chick-fil-A or something like that, I'd be like, something's not right here. I'm in the back office for whatever reason. And it's like, yeah, you'd be looking at you very funnily. Though, being a police officer isn't the worst disguise, mind you, because you could have been talking to the back office to the manager. Again, as you said, badges, easy enough to forge, and as far as you're concerned, flash and put away.
But see, that's the thing. The the idea with pre-testing is you want to blend in. Being a cop inside of a Chick-fil-A or a McDonald's, that's kind of very obvious.
Yeah, though it's very obvious, but having said that, it's not the worst.
Including the outfits that the Gardaí have lately, that this like yellow luminescent cape thing on the top of their body, that's really standing out. Like, that's really drawing attention.
Yeah.
So you don't want to draw attention, you want to kind of blend in. Let's put it that way.
It depends on which way. But if a disguise works, a disguise work. It doesn't matter which way.
Yeah.
But obviously, the less noticeable you are, the easier it is to slip in and out.
The more you can build up your sort of, in this case, scenario.
Yeah. Just dress the part. Just
dress the part. Act like you belong.
Yeah. Pretty much.
So the next type of attack would actually be baiting. So, would you have any idea what a baiting attack from a social engineering thing would look like?
I understand the term baiting, but in terms of like social engineering aspect, I wouldn't be too sure.
Give me your best guess.
I mean, for me, baiting is like literally as the word implies, like, you're baiting a fish, for example. You put a lure, you wait for something to happen, and you catch. It could be anything else. Like, if you want to put it that way, it's almost like a pop-up. Like, oh, you've won. You're like the 36th whatever customer. Oh, you're the lucky winner out of like 1,000 plus. Oh, here's a free iPhone. To me, that'll be probably the next best thing.
That's exactly it. Baiting is a promise of an item or a good to entice victims. So, like, you know, you're the such and such, like 100,000 visitors.
Yeah.
Click here to win an iPhone, and you know, this is all. It's going to be really attractive because it's going to be flashing lights, moving images.
I remember.
You know, epilepsy-inducing stuff.
Oh yes.
Yeah. But like those are really, really obvious ones. Like you know you're not going to get anything out of it. The more subtle stuff is when it's targeted. So I remember there was like a story about, this was from another podcast, and this girl was looking at surfboards, like not adequate, but very enthusiastic surfer. She was looking at a particular board, and then suddenly she finds a website where the board is less than half price, which she pauses, thinks, kind of too good to be true. But I think I can't remember if she proceeds with the purchase or not. But that website was completely fabricated. It was fabricated to her needs. And because the surfboard was so much money, they can knock off a couple of bucks, make it look like a deal, and then make it look just enticing enough for her to buy.
Yeah.
And it was all completely fake. Like, in your example, what would be one of the items you would look for? As far as I know, Final Fantasy collection.
Stuff like that. Not even that. Let's put it just very simple. TVs nowadays. Like, you hear so many deals. Like, for example, Harvey Norman, Curry's PC World. I've seen, 49-inch, 50-inch, okay, I don't know, 4K, if not 2K, whatever, 1080p. Going as cheap as like 80 quid, and it's like, I'm looking at it going, I'm in the store and I don't believe it. Like, it's right in front of me, never mind online. It's sort of like those weird things that's like, maybe our technology, or rather really is technology, has progressed so much at this point that it makes everything like old generations, like 4 or 5 generations ago, very cheap. But when you think of like a TV in general, it's like, has it really gotten that cheap, or is this really outdated?
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder. It's like, oh, this costs like, for example, an LG 47-inch, probably 4K. 3 years ago it was like near around 1,000. It's now like 200 quid.
But see, the thing is that actually a bait? Like, do you actually get a TV? The thing with baiting is you promise them a good, but you never deliver it.
I know that. Like,
that's the thing. Like, they pay the money and you never get the item.
Actually,
that would be a thing. Hence why I was saying if it would be a more targeted thing. Actually, an example which is a little bit skewed would be popular phones like Samsungs and stuff like that coming from Wish. So you know how Samsungs are right now, they're really high tech. They go from like 800 to 1500,
1000 plus,
like 2000, So like this is something happened to a friend of mine. She shops on Wish a lot. Poor lady, God bless her soul. But she finds out that they're selling the Samsung S10
S20 on it?
S10 or S20 at the time, but like that was like high tech, gonna cost like 600, 800, but on the side it was only 80 quid. So pays 80 quid, arrives, and it's like a generic chinky phone.
Yeah, it's like really, really poor quality. It is like nothing else. Well, obviously nothing as advertised. Yeah. Like, that reminds me of like something like the Facebook stuff. It's like, oh, here's some whatever tech or item on sale. Get like 2 for dirt cheap. For example, it could be anything, like even like electric scooters nowadays. It's like, instead of paying 400 quid, you pay 80 quid. And it's like, yeah, I mean, there are certain things to be believed, and certain things are like, this feels a bit dodge. Like, again, when there's my example earlier, even in like, for example, Curry's PC World, I think it's just like that sort of like price difference is so substantial that it's even unbelievable while you're being in the store. Never mind like any like proper baiting tactic online. Yeah,
but see, the thing is, what we're describing here is you're actually getting the product for that price.
Yeah.
And even as much as it's say, oh, getting Samsung Galaxy S10, yes, it's not a Samsung Galaxy S10, but it's still, money still went into building that item. What I'm talking about is more unique items, high value items. It'll be like collector's editions. So where they would create a fake website that would say, maybe have this item, like spotlight this item for you. They might have other stuff in there in the background, but hope that you never click off of it. They'll say, oh, there's a 50% discount, get it now, gets your credit card information, and the item never arrives.
I just want to ask another question. Remember, this is years ago, back when I think iPhone 8 or 9 came out. Remember, there was a big, massive scandal where there's a lot of buy the newest and latest iPhone, but you literally got a toy. Does that count as baiting? You didn't get the product you wanted. You're just given a toy that may have cost 10 cents.
But did you pay the full price for it?
Yes.
Yep, that is baiting.
That's what I'm saying. It's the fact is, it doesn't matter whether or not you get an item if it's not the specified item that you wanted and you just gotten a dud. There's one where I think was it an iPhone 8 or 9 at the time, where you have to go online specifically to activate your iPhone, and during the confusion a lot of people just made a case for that. It's literally just a toy. You just plug it in and nothing really works. But because of the whole online verification back in the day, this is years ago, probably mid 2010s or something, whatever that generation of time was, where they broke the servers because everyone got it and everyone clicked online to activate their iPhone. Don't ask me why, it seems very silly, but hey, whatever works. And so essentially everyone who got a phone, or a lot of them, got a dud, especially outside of the East, or so for example, or Western side, or more EU. Well, there was a lot of scams being that way. You usually got a dud box, or a toy that just lights up when you plug it in, and that's it. There's nothing else with it. It has no tech at all, and you're paying 600 quid. That's profit regardless for the scammer.
Okay. Yeah, so that that would actually conclude that one. So there's another one that's kind of related to that. That would be a quid pro quo type of attack. Would you know anything about that one? No.
I don't think I've heard of that one at all, personally.
So quid pro quo is kind of a favor for a favor.
Ah, I see.
If you want to put it that way. So the malicious actor would promise something in exchange for information. So basically, I'll give you this Tesla car if you just give me your banking credentials. I mean, it sounds like a decent transaction, but if you can warp it down to being a bit more sort of malicious.
To me, you came out when you said Tesla, I was give me your bank credentials. Well, if I'm buying the car, yes, I would have been more presumption of, I'll give you a 30% discount if you give me this type of information.
Give me your mother's maiden name. Fucking, you know it already. Chinese people don't change their names.
Bro, you're not Asian enough for this.
Her maiden name's not a fucking secret here.
We all know each other's maiden names. Why? We never change. We're all maidens.
We're all maidens.
Screw you, Elden Ring. We're all maidens in heart.
But yeah, the another thing I'm thinking now with quid pro quo, it would be promise in exchange of something for information. Is I'm thinking of taken. It's just give me money or else I'm gonna do this. That seems like more of a threat.
That's more threat and blackmailing sort of shenanigans.
Yeah, but it kind of, to me, as how I understand it, it kind of falls within that quid pro quo, because I'm promising you something, give me money and I'll release your daughter, sort of thing.
I suppose.
Yeah.
I guess.
Or, for example, in a company setting, if you give me this information, maybe work related or something else, maybe somebody that's impersonating an IT person or a finance person, if you give me this amount of money, or actually it could be coming from the CEO, from the
the head honchos.
The head honchos is basically, we're kind of doing a survey, and if you fill out this information, it might actually contain private information, you'll get a bonus. Like you'll be put into a pool to get a bonus at the end of the year.
Oh, like draws and stuff like that. Yeah, that makes sense.
So that can be spun maliciously in my head. Like I think people
that's for that one. But like what you were doing was like ransom. Essentially, was like, hey, give me money, or else bad things gonna happen.
Yeah, that would be more of a. That's more of a ransom thing. That's a topic for another day. But yeah, like, would you have any can you think of any examples for quid pro quo, like, that would apply to you in your workspace?
I've never gotten any, to be honest, so I couldn't even think of an example that may or may not apply, even for, like, the average person.
Well, think of a fictitious one.
I mean, the best scenario I probably would have thought of would be like more like give me like a special discount, and if I give like a certain like number or given certain information, that'd be like the easiest way I can think that works for the vast majority of people, like probably including myself. But other than that particular scenario, I really can't think of anything because nothing really sticks out.
Yeah,
because it's such a, I wouldn't even call it a foreign concept, but rather I don't have enough examples to kind of like, give you an example. My pool is very limited for that.
Yeah, no, that's fair, because that's a very kind of high level, very sophisticated sort of attack, because it kind of involves rapport, it involves a bit of trust, and...
I mean, another one I could think of, because you specifically said like, fill out your detailed information and you might be going to a draw or you might get a bonus. The only way I could think of that would be like, for example, mall surveys. That'd be another level that I could think of. It's like, hey, enter like raffle draws, like free raffle draws, but it's mostly surveys at that point. So that's how I see it. Now we're just making
all these sort of maybe legitimate businesses look bad.
I mean, you have to take everything with a grain of salt, and it's like, do you trust everyone with your credit card? No, you don't. So when you're going to malls and stuff like that, like back in the day, this is like how they get people's info. This is how they give you like, sign up for, we'll give you like, was it not quite ads, but like, the marketing, I think it is supposed marketing ads. It's kind of like, you subscribe to like Arnott's, for example, or Boots or something like that. They'll give you, here's our pricing for this week, or here's some special offers, that sort of thing. That's how they used to be done anyway. But like, to me, it's like, that'd be the next best thing that I could think of that would be this type of like scam, if it is a scam.
Well, it is a social engineering attack. So after, all the promises in exchange of information, I want to talk about tailgating, which also will not work for your company. So tailgating, it'll work for when I was working with keywords. You have like a high rotation of people, and for example, people might forget their key cards, and it's going to be commonplace for you to hold up the door. It's like saying, sorry, I forgot my key.
It's kind of like close enough to pretexting to a certain degree, except it's the scenarios is slightly different, whether you're like...
It's actually accessing...
Yeah.
It involves physical access.
Yeah.
Also, you can apply pretexting there as in like somebody carrying in a box of donuts.
Yeah.
And say, I'm holding these boxes of donuts, can you hold the door open up for me?
Yeah.
And this is also kind of playing back into, our human emotion, our empathy of like, this guy's in a lot of struggle. He's holding these donuts. He's probably going to give it to everybody else.
Yeah.
I'm going to hold it up for me. I'm going to be that nice guy.
Yeah, pretty much. As long as you don't look like out of whack.
Oh yeah.
In a sense, it's like you could be just holding two big boxes, and like you could dress the part, and let's just say, just have some like close enough to a lanyard, but you're pinned. All they see is just a lanyard ring, and it's like, sorry, can you open the door? Like just barely peeking out. It's like, okay, yeah, sure, no problem, and you just slide in. And that's it. That's you in the building.
The thing is, like, I don't think you need a lanyard.
No, but like again, if you want to play the full Monty, that's if you need it. But like it should be it be anything. It could be
also,
just nothing at all.
Depends on the company culture.
Yeah,
like, because lately, like back in the day, we didn't have lanyards per se. We just had this card. But when I kind of transitioned into more of a tech business, they would always have lanyards. You'll have it around your neck, or you have them around your kind of
belt.
tied around your belt. But it would always be visible because you needed to get around the place. Otherwise, you're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
So with tailgating, like in your case, it's not going to work. It's such a small group of people. At maximum, you're going to have like 7 people in the shop.
Yeah.
And everybody knows everybody. So somebody following you to get in. I think somebody did try to do that when you were just opening a shop. And then when the customers tried to get in like 4:30, he's like, he wandered in. No, the front door was open. They wandered in. Lights are off. It's looking kind of confusing. You guys open? Not for another half an hour, buddy.
A bit early there, bud.
A little bit early.
Yeah,
I think we were doing something at the time, so
I
the
think
front door was
yeah,
open.
we're moving stuff in, which is vast majority of times would be happening.
Somebody wandered in.
I mean, not quite tailgating per se, but yeah, the point still stands where you just like kind of just slip in behind a person. I mean, we all technically done tailgating to a certain degree. Like for example, like turnstiles. If you could, like for example, instead of paying 2 tickets back in the day, you just slip as fast as possible in between everything.
Yeah.
Say for like, the parking gates. If you're fast enough, you get in. That's it.
Yeah.
That sort of way.
Literally bumper to bumper.
Yep.
Tailgating.
Yep.
Right there. So the last one might be a little bit over your head, unfortunately, and it's a very high sort of what was the one I'm trying to look for? Highly sophisticated attack.
Yeah, I mean,
so this is going to be the CEO fraud. So
no, okay. So to me, with that aspect, is either you are defrauding the CEO or you're pretending to be the CEO. There's a lot of scenarios there, but hence the CEO fraud. Are you directly targeting the CEO or are you impersonating? Again, it could be anything.
No, CEO fraud would be targeting the head honchos.
Yeah.
In this case, I think I might have kind of mentioned it in Whaling, but something very similar.
Yeah.
So the attacker would leverage the trustworthiness of the source of the request, such as a CFO. So he'll pretend to be somebody else.
Yeah, somewhat higher up. Yeah.
So CFO is the company financial officer.
Yeah, chief financial officer.
Yeah. And to convince an employee to perform the financial transaction to provide sensitive and valuable information. So I'm going to track back. It's actually pretending to be a senior.
Yeah.
So the CEO fraud, like this actually happened to us once, or actually twice now. We've gotten an email pretending to be one of the directors. I'm kind of glad one of the guys replied because it got a little bit of a follow-up on how that chain worked rather than kind of cutting off short. Yeah. So there was about 10 emails went out to the company, to various people, pretending to be one of the directors in my company. And they said, oh, I need to chat to you real quick. It came from a Gmail. It had a signature saying that he's the director of the company, although he never states it in his actual emails.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I need to chat to you immediately. Can you respond to this email ASAP? So this is kind of also invoking urgency. It's invoking seniority. Yeah. So there's already kind of like, to a person that's unaware.
Yeah, that's like, head honcho wants me for something. Must act now.
Must act now. Gotta do that. With my manager, if he was a little bit less cybersecurity aware, he'd definitely go for it because he's like, directors come first.
Yeah.
But yeah, that chain of emails, well, unfortunately the chain was consisting of 3 emails. It kind of cut off short. But it was basically, the next thing was, I'm currently in a conference. Can you go off and buy me some, Google vouchers or iTunes vouchers?
Yeah. I remember another story that I've heard, I think, from other podcasts and just elsewhere on the internet. Basically, pretty much doing the exact same thing. It was like, the director talking to I think it was like a finance or the accountant going, oh, I need like 200 in, I don't know, in Google cards or something like that. And she was like, oh, okay. This probably looks weird. Give me a second. She physically just walked over to the director at that point going, you sure you need this? This feels weird that you're asking me via email. It's like, I didn't ask you anything. Oh, okay. Right, note it down. This is a scam.
Yeah, that what was done there is actually the correct procedure. So if you, for example, there's been, in this case, an unsolicited message saying, can you send this amount of money, or especially coming from a senior person, or looking like coming from a senior person, can you send me this amount of money, or can you go to the shops and get me some vouchers or whatever? Like in our case, we do have Christmas bonuses, and they come in. They do come in a voucher form, but it's a particular sort of brand where that can be used in multiple shops. I'm not going to mention it here, but you know the one I'm talking about. Yes. You've seen it.
Yes.
That would be the only other thing that might catch the person out that's responsible for it. But they need to know who's responsible for it, first of all, because it's not the financial officer.
Yeah.
And whoever's kind of allocating how much money is put into each person's account. Because, like, last year, they're saying, oh, if it's either you get the bonus as a payment, which gonna include deductions, or to avoid deductions, we can just put it onto this card for you.
Yeah, and not even that. If you think about it this way, the whole point of like Google cards or iTunes cards is like it's a scratch off card.
Yeah,
it's like the thing with like some other cards that it's not the same. It just like, for example, like a Dunn Stores gift card. There is no like scratch off like ready available text. It's like, oh, it's a physical card, or that you can use around the place. So it's a bit different depending on what card it is, but those cards would be harder to like work around, or rather you steal, because it's like almost a physical card, or they really don't have like an online sort of like digital code.
But see, it wouldn't really be stealing those. It would be basically, the chain would be as follows. Need to talk to you. Yeah, sure, what you need, boss. Need you to get me some cards. Okay, got them. What do you want me to do with them? Oh, can you send me photos of it and scratch off the back? That would be the general flow of it.
Yes.
And then they'll use that to transfer money onto their system or whatever they're using it in.
Yeah, but like the whole point would be getting to that stage of scratching the back of the card, aka authentication number. But like for example, like Dunn Store, or like even like TK Maxx cards, or even any sort of like loyalty cards nowadays, which generally can be put into it. You really don't have that, so I'm more confused. Like, how would you do it in that case?
I don't think they're gonna use the main three.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be either Google Play, iTunes, or what's the last one? There's another one.
I can't think of. I'm pretty sure I know which one you're talking about, but it's not like a Nintendo E one, so it's something else.
It's something that you can actually put into, a transactional, or like you can somehow transfer into money eventually.
Yeah.
So yeah. Or otherwise kind of request a refund. Like, I don't know if there's a process of actually just requesting a refund, of saying, oh, I have these cards but I want to refund them back.
Normally it's via store.
Yeah.
Yeah. Normally. That's how it normally works.
Okay.
I mean, you could say, hey, this is a dud that I got from a store. I only noticed when I tried to implement it, and you could give a case. As long as you have some sort of receipt, which maybe you could from getting that picture, you could probably get into your account. That'd be another option, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay. Guess that would be the case. So that would be all that I wanted to talk about. Do you have anything else to contribute here?
I don't know much apart from that. Vast majority of scenarios, I think it's just more like be aware, really, of just like how stuff works, either just in general. Like, just put it as simply just in your mind as like, hey, if something feels odd, just double check. That's the easiest way. Like, I gotten like, for example, going back like smishing or basically the SMS, I got one for something like a post office. And if you're like a person that gets post office or just postals from packages from here and there, you know, from Wish, Amazon, eBay, it'd be like something simple as, oh, hey, you need to pay £2 because of whatever fees. And it's like, well, technically speaking, £2 is not a skin off anyone's back, but you have to understand, why do I need to pay this, and should I click this link? And that's the main problem is, well, do not click the link. What it is, you go onto the main website in a different browser, don't do anything with any links whatsoever to make sure it's safe. That's the best way I could say it.
Like, another thing I'd kind of suggest is ask questions. Like, go to people, maybe more I don't want to kind of bash my own drum here, but like, go to a more tech savvy individual, get their input on it, and see what they'll say about it. Or not
necessarily. I mean,
like,
you could just be
somebody
asking,
else's opinion.
Yeah,
get
you
somebody
could just
else's
literally
opinion.
say, "Hey, this looks funny to me. Does this seem funny to you?" And it's like, yeah, it feels it looks a bit dodgy. That's all you need. Just another person. It could be anyone from in the store to just a person in the shop. Like, if you have a weird message from the post office, go to the post office and ask. There's no such thing as a dumb question.
Yeah. Like, another example is, I've noticed lately companies have become a bit more responsible into admitting that, oh, we're aware that this is happening. We can't really stop it, but for your own information, don't click on any links. We'll never ask you to fill out any forms and stuff like that. Everything's going to be going through this particular method. And for example, with eFlow, which is the road, like
road toll
usage and stuff like that in Ireland. I did find a website for them saying, yes, we're aware this is happening. There's no real way to prevent it because we still require communication with our customers.
Yes.
And we still require their information to contact them in case, something happens. But do be aware, we will never ask, like, these particular bullet points. We'll never ask for credit card information. We'll never ask you to update credit card information. Never ask you for your financial or personal information because we already have it. Like, there's no point of us getting it again.
Yeah. So yeah,
that'll be it. Well, thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for joining me today, Terry, on this.
No worries. I guess I'll be a recurring guest from now on. We'll have you down again.
Yeah, and we'll continue next time into a layman's mind with our cybersecurity edition.